And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. Whoops, there we go. I am your host, Kim Davis. And man, it has been quite a week. Of course, we were not here last week. We were dealing with the winter storm in Houston, Texas. How does that sound, right? Ice and snow and power going out and things being frozen over. So we didn't have a show last week, obviously, but we are back and there is no shortage of stuff to talk about. So welcome. Thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. For those of you who are in Houston, I hope, or in Texas or in one of these states that have been hit by this winter storm, I hope that you have survived it and are doing well. If you have not, if you're not doing well, obviously, if you haven't survived it, you wouldn't be listening to me. But if you are struggling and suffering with outages or losses and damage to your home, I just encourage you to make sure if you have insurance, that you get on your, file with your insurance as soon as possible. If you don't, reach out to FEMA. There are resources that are being set up all around the state and the region. And so it will be a process. It will probably be lengthy, but get on those lists as soon as possible. If you happen to be in the Houston area, make sure that you let the city know if you've had pipes that burst, even if you're taking care of them. And whatever you do, take photos of everything. Take photos of the pipes that burst when they are repaired. Make sure you get pictures of where the bend or break was, as well as the photos of all the damage in and around your home. It's really important to document that. So I just wanted to start today's show off by offering you that little bit of encouragement. It has been a crazy time, but hey, listen, you will get through it. We always do. And so information is important, and I hope that information is helpful. There's lots of stuff. I'll post some things on my page later, but in Houston, of course, the number is 311. If you continue to get a busy line, or have a hard time getting through, which is possible because there's so many people who unfortunately have suffered outages and whatnot. I encourage you to go online if you can, if you have access to the internet, go online and make your claims there. Let them know that you have been impacted and how. So that's what's happening today in Houston. The weather is, right now it's 70 degrees. I'm looking at my watch. It tells me that it may even get up warmer than that today. Just think about where we were last week. People were freezing, literally people were freezing to death. And it's 80 degrees. So for those of you who don't believe that climate change is real, it is. And so I'm encouraging you to take the necessary precautions. And what is that, Kim? How do we prevent climate change? Well, we don't. But what we do is we contact our politicians and let them know that we need help right now, and that we also want you to be proactive as it relates to climate change. What we know is that the last time there was an ice storm, a winter storm in Houston, was about 10 years ago, and the state was warned about it. We were warned to do something different, and we didn't do that. Why? Because politicians and elected officials that we have put in office to serve us have not done that. They have served themselves in their own pocketbooks, their own wallets, their own checking accounts, whatever you want to call it. And they've allowed the energy companies to really police themselves, and that's not working. So whether you're into big government or little government, whatever you want to call it, I don't think anyone is into having a power grid that is so fragile and that came so very close to just shutting down completely, which would have meant weeks, maybe even months without power. It was that close, from my understanding. All the reporting is that it was really, really that close. So something needs to happen. We cannot keep allowing the energy companies to make out with all this money because they're not regulated and we're on our own grid. Well, that's not working either. So I'm saying that to say, in the state of Texas right now, the legislatures are in session. They're in session every other year. 2021 is the year that they're in session. Let them hear from you. Whoever represents you, your state legislators, your state senators, the Railroad Commission, which does not have anything to do with railroads, It does have everything to do with energy. Let them hear from you, because this will not be the last time we're faced with this kind of weather event. And in the future, we may not even fare as well as we did this time if something isn't done before that. We need to be on a power grid that allows us, that we can share transmission and energy with others in the country. And if they can share it with us, there's no point in us being on our own power grid when we can't get any help. We need to upgrade it. We need to winterize it. And it's just, there needs to be some regulation, because when you don't allow, now we're asking you to police yourselves, that's not working. So my encouragement to you, on this show, I like to give you things to do. Let your politicians hear from you, okay? They need to hear from you about this grid, about regulations, about being deregulated, and all the like. So I just wanted to start the show with that, to give you a few little things to do as we jump into today's Chalk Talk and start talking about some of what's happening on the sports scene. And really, I'm going to focus mostly on Houston sports today. We talk about sports all around the country, but I'm going to do a lot of Houston sports today. If you would like to be a part of the conversation, drop some notes in the chat, and I will get to those. But welcome to Chalk Talk, and I'm glad that you are here. If you're watching the replay, hang tight. We'll be playing some interviews for you to listen to throughout the show. And as always, I invite you to share the video. So a lot of people are still getting back to normal. We may not have as many people involved in the live part of today's show, because people are still trying to get their lives back, right? They're trying to get that all back together. So listen, here's what's happening. We're going to start talking about those Houston Astros. I'm excited about baseball season. It is spring training. Yesterday was the first full day of spring training for the Houston Astros. And from everything that we've heard so far, it's early, right? It's the first full day where everyone was there. Things look good. The players are excited about it. Alex Bregman talked about it. I'm not playing you any Alex Bregman sound today. I'll probably play some of that later in the week. But he said he's excited. He got married in the off season. He said it's the best thing he could have done. He's super excited about married life thus far, which is great to hear. Carlos Correa talked about how this team is ready and how he feels great. I'm going to start with Carlos Correa, letting you hear from him.
What I mean by that is that I feel really healthy. I feel really strong. My swing feels great. Figure out some things last year that helped me in the playoffs, and they're gonna translate this year. And I'm super confident going into the season with the team that we have. So, man, I feel really good. I feel solid right now. I was talking to Arturo. Today I was like, damn, this is the best we've ever looked in the first workout of spring training. Because he also put in the work. I saw him putting in the work, taking ground balls, hitting BP almost every day. I was doing the same. So when we showed up today, we showed up in great shape. Even Dusty Baker told us, you guys showed up ready to go. And we showed up because we want to win another championship, and we want to perform to the best of our abilities. And for us to do that, we had to go out there in the offseason and put in the work to show up ready for spring training.
That was Correa. Excuse me for that. We have a little bit of water. So he's excited to be there. This is, of course, they lost George Springer. That's a big hole to fill. Miles Straw is a guy that they think, is competing for the spot that George Springer, the spot he held. You're not going to have one guy come in and fill the shoes of a George Springer, right? Because he just meant so much to this team. And in fact, I was doing the Sports Extra show on KHOU TV here in Houston over the weekend. And one of the questions that we answered in the segment that I was on was which of the three players that have left Houston sports will have the biggest impact? Which one of those franchises will feel the loss of the player from their team the most. And it was J.J. Watt from the Texans, because he's officially gone. It was James Harden from the Rockets, or George Springer from the Astros. And I said, I think that they'll feel that George Springer lost the most. You know, JJ, of course, is an emotional player. He's meant so much to this team and this city for a long time. And he still has some football left, but he is not obviously the JJ Watt he was 5 years ago in his career. George Springer is very much in the prime, right? He's got a lot of baseball left, and he has meant so much to this team, not just in the regular season, but with those clutch hits and home runs in postseason. I think you're going to really feel that. And of course, James Harden, you know, if James Harden were on this current Rockets team with the issues they've had with COVID and being healthy, I'm talking about the James Harden that would be more of a grown-up, not the one who was pouting at the beginning of this season, but the James Harden, who's the Harden that the Nets see right now. That player would make a difference here, but with the injuries and the health concerns they've had, I don't know how much of a difference. But George Springer is the guy that you're going to feel the most. Hey, good morning, Alvin Wright. Hope that you have fared well throughout this winter storm and that you're doing okay. Haven't talked to you since the loss of your sister, but sending you condolences and prayers to you and your family, and hope that you are doing well. So always good to see you on the show. Alvin says George Springer for sure. And also, you know, we talk about what guys like J.J. Watt and James Harden have done for the Houston community, which, you know, I have to give James Harden credit. He is right now still contributing to the city. But you're also right. George Springer has done a lot. These are all players who have been an impact on the field and off the field. But I just think you're going to miss George Springer the most. So you're very welcome, Alvin. Good morning, Carolyn. Welcome. It's good to see you. I hope that you guys all fared well during this winter storm. And if you've had issues, that you're making sure to take pictures and file claims and get on all the right lists so that you can be made whole as soon as possible. But listen, the other question we had on the show on Sunday night, which was a good one, is which one of the front offices, how would you rate the front offices? So for me, I rated the Astros, and we did 1, 2, and 3. We did Astros, Rockets, and Texans. And that was my order. Astros won. I think that what they've done is, you know, you can't even blame them for losing George Springer. When you have so many first-round picks that end up being as good as you thought they would be, you're going to have a money logjam at some point, right? You can't pay everybody. So they paid, of course, Altuve, and, you know, they played Verlander, and they brought in Greinke. I mean, they paid some other players. They played Bregman. And so you just can't pay everyone. So we'll see what happens with this team this year. But listen, they went out and they did some work with the bullpen. The bullpen showed us a little bit in postseason last year, but like what Alex Bregman said yesterday, the bullpen, they've really got some exciting pieces. So they're really optimistic about how they look with the bullpen. And then the Rockets, I would say, I would put them in the second spot, because I think what Rafael Stone, the general manager, has done, especially what he got back from James Harden, you know, a guy that was clearly disgruntled, who did not want to be in Houston and was just kind of taking it, right? And he was able to get a lot for James Harden. He got a lot of picks. And he got some picks that, he got some flexibility with the picks. And then, of course, he got a couple players. And what they did even in the offseason with getting a Christian Wood, you know, I just think, you know, look at like a Jay Sean Tate. I think that what he's doing with that ball club, despite whatever may happen with Boogie Cousins, I think they're doing a great job. And then obviously the Houston Texans are at the bottom of the barrel. They could not, there's not a team that could be worse in terms of what they've done with their front office, right? So the Texans are just the Texans, and we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, you know, a little bit later in the show. Alvin says Astros 1, Rockets 2, but still have issues. Yeah, Texans, what are they doing? Listen, the Texans, I said this on Sunday, and the guys were like, what did you say? And I've said it here. You guys have heard me say it on this show. I do not believe, from what I've seen from the Houston Texans, not despite them saying we're not going to talk. We're not taking calls about Deshaun Watson. We're not going to trade him. They're playing hardball. And what we know is they're not good at whatever they're doing. But I don't think they want Deshaun Watson on this team. I don't. And I think the one thing that they're smart enough to know is that if we just came out and said that, we would really seem like other people wouldn't really get it. But the vision that we have for our team doesn't include him. I believe that. And here's why. Why do you say that, Kim? I'm glad you asked. I believe it because everything they've done said, Deshaun, we don't want you here. Okay. They went out and hired a coach that wasn't even on not only his list, was on nobody's list. So for those of you who are saying, well, they hired a black coach, which is so offensive. Deshaun didn't say I wanted a black coach. He wanted a certain kind of coach, right? The coach of the Jets was a guy he would have liked, Silas, he's not African-American. So it's not just about a coach that's an African-American. It was a certain kind of coach, Jack Easterby has been given free reign. Listen, Cal McNair has said, Jack is my dude. He ain't going anywhere. He's going to be here. Okay. Jamie Ruth, you not happy? You don't like what we're doing with Jack? Deuces. Jamie Roots, who's been with the organization since its inception, who was the president of the team president, who ran the business side. And whatever you may have thought about the Houston Rockets, now listen, Jamie wasn't perfect. That organization lacked diversity under Jamie Roots as well, but they did run a good organization, and they made money, right? They were a good business organization. Okay. So not that they shouldn't have done some things differently. I've always been a critic of them in that regard, but now, so we're back to Jack Easterby. So Jack Easterby is a problem. Everyone on both sides of the organization, the business operations side and the football operations side, have shared that. It's not just Deshaun Watson. That is widely thought and felt throughout this organization and throughout that locker room. And you decided, tough, that's my dude, I'm sticking with him. Nobody can really tell you what he does. Okay, he was a chaplain. And he was, what else was he? He was a chaplain, and then he was an intern. Well, he was an intern first, and then he was a chaplain, then he was a culture coach, and they brought him over to Houston. And then, of course, Bill O'Brien, who was clearly the worst GM ever, made him a executive VP of football operations. And now he's, of course, helped to get Nick Caserio and all that kind of stuff. So listen, he's a problem, and he's still there, and he seems to be getting more empowered. Recently, in the last couple of weeks, they got rid of Mike, the equipment manager, who was widely loved in the organization, right? He was really cool with Deshaun, one of Deshaun's guys. I mean, Deshaun didn't, he didn't come with Deshaun, but he's been here. I mean, you're just getting rid of people. You've been getting rid of people that mean something to this player that you're trying to tell other people that we want to keep. I don't believe it. I'm just telling you, everything they've done has said, we don't want you, other than verbally saying, we don't want you. And I go back to the press conference when they introduced Nick Caserio. The first question was asked, are you going to trade Deshaun Watson? And the answer was, he's our quarterback. The answer should have been emphatically, absolutely not. Whatever it takes to get Deshaun on board, we're going to do that. It should have been emphatic. It should have been genuine. We didn't hear that. We heard, he's our quarterback. Well, yeah, he's your quarterback. They don't really answer the question. And then later they said, oh, we're not going to trade him. So it is a mess. The Houston Texans organization is a mess, and I don't know how they're going to get better. So we'll talk about them a little more. I'll let you hear some tape from some of the guys who are like some of the expert analysts about what's happening. And really nothing's happening. But Alvin says, back to the Rockets, they need to reload. Hey, that's a campaign slogan. Look at you with your little marketing your little marketing hat on. Oh my goodness, that's true. Texans have a hocus pocus mentality. Don't mind the man behind the curtain. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I can't quite call it, you know? And how do you get rid of the guy who washes the uniforms? Alvin, exactly. Now, you at home may be saying, what's the big deal? He's as close to those players as anybody. Like, he's the equipment guy. All the stuff they use, their uniforms, their pads, all the stuff that they have to do their job, he has his hands on it. Why would you fire him? Like, are you seriously? The Texans to join the ACC. I don't even know, right? Because they probably have to follow some rules, and who knows what those would be. It is just craziness what's happening with that Texans organization. Good morning, Emma Yancey. Thank you so much. You're a little biased, but I love you because you're family, and I appreciate you being a part of Chalk Talk. So let's go back to a team that may actually have a future, and that is the Houston Astros. I'll let you hear from Carlos Correa. I'm going to let you hear from him some more. He talks about, if you remember last year, he kind of stepped more into a leadership role, if you will. I mean, he took it on. And so he talked about just that a little bit yesterday. Whoops. Don't people know I'm doing a show? I think they forget. Here's Carlos Correa.
It's all about not taking for granted what we have every single day, and that's that we get to play baseball for a living in a great organization and a great team. So whenever a new guy shows up, or whenever somebody comes up from the minor leagues, you gotta make sure that we teach them the ways and how we do things here in the atmosphere that we've been able to build for almost 4 years now, almost 5 years now. And it's a winning atmosphere. In order for us to do that, everybody mentally has to be on the same page. So it's all about that, self-respect in the clubhouse, and try to teach the young guys how we do business here, and why we've been successful, and why we're a playoff team.
So yesterday, one of the questions was asked about somebody on the call asked him about what somebody asked him about Yordan Alvarez, because of course he was out last year, and how he's looked, right? So it's almost like having a free agent, a new guy come in, because the season was so short, and Yordan was out because most of the year because he was injured. And Carlos said, when asked how he looked, he said, "Yeah, he looks sexy." And maybe that's it is a cultural, like, in terms of how he described him, but he said he looks good, he looks healthy, but he kept using the word, "He looks good, man. He looks sexy." And I just thought it was funny. So that was so Yordan Alvarez apparently is back and looks ready to go. The other thing that everybody that we talked to yesterday said how excited they are about being back. And I asked Alex Bregman, I said, not that you ever took the game for granted, but is it because the pandemic last year and just, the way the season went in terms of not having much baseball, is that why everyone seems to be so excited? And Bregman said, yeah, he said, you're right. It's not that we ever took it for granted, but there is a difference, and we're just excited to be here. And so this is Correa also talking about that excitement.
Just to lock in defensively and just play with pride.
Whoops, that's not him. We'll get to that. That's basketball.
I love this team. I love my teammates. I love what we. I've never been more excited to show up to spring training in my career than this year. I'm super excited to be here. I'm happy that baseball is back. I feel something special. In this clubhouse. The way I showed up today told me a lot of how everybody put in the work to make sure they're ready, ready to compete, and win another championship. So I haven't even thought about that. I'm thinking I'll winning again. And with this team, I feel like we can do it.
So one of the question that he was talking about, I haven't thought about it, is that about all of the shortstops that are going to be available this off season. And And like he said, he hasn't really thought about that. He's thinking about this season. But he also did say later he has the ability to slide over to third. I mean, he's comfortable at third if he needed to be there as well. But he's really focused on this season. So that's what that conversation was about. That was Carlos Correa there in spring training and super excited about being there. So I'll be bringing you, Astros sound and updates from spring training because they are officially there. It is officially on. The Houston Rockets have been struggling. They're in the middle of an 8-game losing streak. And, it has been frustrating. They've really struggled without Christian Woods. And then they struggle with having like a Oladipo who's been a little bit injured. Eric Gordon, who historically has injury problems. They've just had challenges. You've gotten Daniel House back, John Wall. But you have some guys who have some injury challenges. Some of the young guys have been exciting to watch. And in this streak, this is head coach Stephen Silas talking about the team in the streak, the losing streak.
This thing,
it's a pride thing. It's a togetherness thing. It's
like an attention to details thing, or
not even like an attention to details thing or scheme thing or whatever. It's like a mindset thing.
The mindset needs to change because
at some point the mindset needs to change because
the way we're starting
games,
22-7 to start the game.
The way we're starting games, 22-7 to start the game. You got to fight so hard.
Third quarter, we
to come back,
46 points,
and then the third quarter, we give up 46 points.
Yeah, we just got to do better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cody Davis.
Got to do better.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, possibly the only silver lining out of this game was the production that you got from your bench unit. Can you just talk about the production that you got from your bench unit? Can you just talk about what David Nwaba and Sterling Brown gave you guys tonight?
Those guys just played hard, like they always do.
No matter what happened.
No matter what happened,
season though, whatever.
This throughout the season though, whatever, regardless of what happens, they Sterling especially are like on it as far as just playing hard, taking what the defense gives them, not letting adversity get to them, that sort of thing.
It was definitely a stark difference.
So yeah, I was proud of those guys, but there was definitely a stark difference between those guys and the starting group.
That was Stephen Silas last night after the team dropped their 8th straight game. And so he mentioned David Nwaba during that. And here is David Nwaba talking about the defense after last night's loss to the Bulls.
Just to lock in defensively and just play with pride. That's the biggest thing that he emphasized on, just playing with pride, just locking up on the defensive end, just one-on-one matchups. And
Ryan Bearfield?
I don't think we did a good job of that.
What happened in the third quarter as far as defense was concerned? David, what happened in the third quarter as far as defense was concerned?
We gave up a lot of open shots. I don't think we were disciplined to help the next man. We gave up a lot of open shots. It's important to help the next man, whether it's just a low man, just being there for the role. And it's important that we just help each other. The next man helping the low man. So it's important that we just help each other out when it comes to the defensive end.
When you're a team that is having to start small as you guys did tonight, what are some of those things that you have to pay more attention to? Is having to start small as you guys did tonight, what are some of those things that you have to pay more attention to defensively to make sure that you guys are
just all get down there. We all got to crush the glass. It's important to box out. Just all get down there because they're big down there. And it's important to box out, just crush the glass and play with each other. Switch up. Just not let them get a full head of steam coming at us, and I think that's the biggest thing.
So that was David Nwaba last night, and let me tell you what he did. He had 22 points off the bench. He played 26 minutes. It was 9 of 16. He had 9 rebounds, a couple of assists, a couple of steals. So he led our scorers last night with 22 points off the bench. John Wall finished with 15 points. They got PJ Tucker was 0 for 3. He finished with no points last night, and Daniel House had 15. Jayshawn Tate had 10, and Sterling Brown, who you heard also, you also heard Coach Silas talk about kind of the second unit. So that's David Nwaba and Sterling Brown. So between the two of them, you had 38 points off the bench. So they had 16 points from Sterling Brown and Victor Oladipo, who did not play because of still a little bit banged up. So listen, it is some challenging times for this Houston Rockets team, and it's going to test this young head coach, Stephen Silas, because as he mentioned, he said it's really about mindset. It's not even really about attention to detail. So as a coach, what do you do with that? And so it's got to be challenging, but it's a part of it's part of the job. So you've got to get everybody on the same page. He talked about it being, as you heard him say, a sense of pride. You've got to want to do this, and you've got to come out. I mean, they can't keep coming out and spotting the other team last night. Was it 22-7 in the first quarter? Then you just dig such a hole. You have so far to come back from. It's really challenging. So that is one of the things that they're going to have to figure out. They had a few days with no games, so they got a chance to practice. And so you're expecting something a little different. And then when you get that, it's a little demoralizing. But listen, there's a lot of basketball left, and they've got to get it together, and they can't just wait until Christian Woods gets back. They've got to be able to do some things and show up a little differently. So that's been interesting, right? That has been interesting. So last night they didn't look great. I was telling you some of the numbers, and this season the schedule doesn't lend itself for you to be able to rebound a lot, because you need practices. You need practice time together, especially as a young team. And by young, I mean a team that's new together, a new coach, a lot of new pieces. The next time they play is on Thursday. They play at the Cavaliers. And so, they're really playing every other day. So they played at home last night. They play at the Cavaliers on Thursday, on Wednesday. And then on Friday, they play at Toronto before coming back and playing at home on Sunday against Memphis. So I may actually try to go to that game. And then next week, they're at home. They play Cleveland. So they have a game on Sunday. They play Cleveland at home on Monday. And then they play Wednesday night. They play Brooklyn. So James Harden will be here next Wednesday. That's as far as we know about the schedule, because remember, the NBA just put really the first half of the schedule on the calendar. So we just know through the first week of March. So the Rockets right now are 11-18. They've lost 8 in a row, right? So they were 11-10. They lost 8 in a row. They are now 11-18. They will face the Cavaliers, who are 10-21. So a lot to climb back from with this Houston Rockets team. But I still, while they have some things to work out, I still feel good about the organization. Like, it's not the Texans, right? They're not the Texans, and that's something to be glad about. Speaking of the Texans and Deshaun Watson, there's been no movement. There's a lot of conversation. There's some people who think that Deshaun should say something. Since we last were together, because I wasn't here last week, JJ Watt has asked for, I think we may have talked about it, he asked for and was granted his release. So now he can go and find where he wants to play, and a team that wants to play him doesn't have to work out a trade. He has a chance to go and play for a team that can be competitive. And so the team has been talking about, they've done all sorts of things where fans have called up and left messages about what they thought about JJ. They played video tributes to him. And then they've just done a lot of, honoring, if you will, JJ Watt and what he's meant to this franchise and the organization, and trying to do that for the city as well. Meanwhile, Deshaun is, there's been no resolution, and apparently the Texans are not taking phone calls. Here is, I guess, Adam Schefter talking about. Let's play this interview, talking about the latest, if you will, with Deshaun Watson.
Everything we just mentioned, I think, pales in comparison to what's going on with Deshaun Watson.
Because we never seen somebody age 25 sign a big, huge contract like that, and then turn around a year later and say, I want out, and there's a new coach and a new general manager coming in. He doesn't even want to talk to them. Where do things stand on that, Adam, as you and I are talking right now?
Yeah, exactly where they've been and exactly where they will be for a little bit of time, which is that the Texans are intent upon not trading him, and he's intent upon not playing for that team again. And so you tell me how that plays out over time, and when it reaches a head, and when it reaches a crescendo. And I don't know the answer to that. Nobody knows. The Texans could say, hey, we'll sit on you as long as it takes until you come back here. And he could say, I don't really care. I know what I've experienced, and I know what I believe about you. I'm not coming back there. Now, we've seen this before with other players, and every player is different. It unfolds different. But we're also living in a different day and age, and I don't know that there's ever been a player as talented as Deshaun in the position he's in that has been willing to go to the mat and go to the distance for the team. So I don't know how that plays itself out. I do know that, in my mind, the first real natural deadline that would come along would be coming up to the draft. Because if you are the Texans and you are even open to the idea that you would move on from him, and by the way, they've given no indication so far that that is the case. Mm-hmm. All this talk about Deshaun Watson being traded, which, again, we've had, you've had, everybody's had, has been media generated because we can look into the horizon and see what could be out there, whereas the Texans aren't even looking into the horizon. They are living in the moment.
Yeah, so, they're living in the moment, hoping that their phone buzzes with a text from number 4 saying, let's chat, and so
and that ain't happening.
So let me ask you this, Adam. Has he delivered a list to them that these are the teams I want? Because a number of times he'd love to go to the Jets. No, he wouldn't. Yeah. Or he'd love to go to the Dolphins. No, he actually prefers the Broncos. Does something like that exist?
You know what's funny? I continue to see reports like the Miami Dolphins are interested in Deshaun Watson. Report. And I think to myself, hold on. Let me spell it out to you right now, Rich.
Yes.
Every team in the NFL with a quarterback question is interested in Deshaun Watson. Breaking news, okay?
Right.
You list the teams. The Jets, the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Niners, the Bears. Everyone with a question is interested in Deshaun Watson. Breaking, okay? We can put that to bed, right? Everybody would love to have him. Everybody, including the Houston Texans.
So has he delivered a list to them? Best you know.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that they're at that level yet. I don't know how Deshaun and his people have decided to navigate this dance in the coming weeks. At some point, I would think that either Deshaun or his representation would go to the Texans and deliver them in the strongest language possible. We are never going to play for your organization again. You might want to trade us.